Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Sacred Seal Tier List Update. We'll be looking at the Tempest Trial Seal, but before we start, I want to point out that these seals are now available. If you do not have Brazen Attack Def, get it as soon as you can. It is easily one of the best seals we've had in the past, so it would be silly for you not to upgrade it to the max. Even Death Wave is not bad, but typically Death Tactic will do the same job and more consistent for your team, that is. Fire Boost is just... let's not talk about it. So, the seal that have been added this time around are HP Speed 2, and HP Speed 2 is a bit of an awkward seal. Typically you'll be using that on a unit with no follow-up. Although, if that's what you're doing, Attack Speed Bond or Speed Res Bond will definitely be better in that role. Still, if what you're going for is just the extra speed, and you get an extra 4 HP on top of it, and it might help you get in Desperation a bit easier, this seal may help. Outside of that, I can't really think of anywhere where it doesn't just get outclassed by Speed Res Bond. It's definitely not perfect, as at the end of the day, it's just HP. Typically, if you have no follow-up, well, yeah, it can kind of help here and there, but it's not anything really worth mentioning at the end of the day. Characters like Aversa can definitely use it pretty well as well, and that's kind of it. Maybe also Panic User that already have a bit of speed. I'm thinking of, say, Christmas Robin, for example. Good user of it. That's kind of it, though. Moving on to Warding Stance. I'd say it's easily the best seal of the bunch. Look to enemy phase unit, sure, but at the end of the day, you're going to be using Berkut's Lance on units like these. Oboro, for example, can definitely use it. Hell, you can make a meme build with Lucas that ends up hitting quite good levels of res. Berkut's Lance and Warding Stance go hand in hand together. And so does Barrier Blade and Warding Stance. There's many ways to make this work, a lot more than, say, Speed Res Bond. Now, the second Attack Res Bond appears is going to be fairly uninteresting, because Attack Res Bond is literally just Warding Stance with an extra 5 attack. To some extent. Obviously you need someone next to you, which can be a problem, but not typically. So, yeah, it's kind of iffy. I can really just think of mostly Oboro, Lucas, maybe even Shiro if you go for a Berkut Lance set on him. But the thing is, when it comes down to Shiro, that you will prefer the following seal, for that matter. That's just the way he is. His speed stat is a bit awkward, but he can definitely build on it. Warding Stance, though, does not require you to have any positioning with other people, so it's more consistently helpful for you. That said, once we have Attack Res Bond, that will have a better payoff, but a harder condition, essentially, is what it is. Typically a fairly underwhelming seal. The only reason it's in S-, or is it A+? I think it's A+. Yeah, A+. Is because I have Fortress Res in, well, A tier. So it's just a better Fortress, in my opinion. Fortress skills have been completely power creep by stance skills, since it's basically it's basically one more in the bulk they offer without the 3 attack minus. So yeah, stance skill is just much better at the end of the day. Still, like I said, once Attack Res Bond becomes a seal, well, I mean, Attack Res Bond is just going to be a tier or 2 above. Probably, if Attack Res Bond ever becomes a thing, it would be S tier bare minimum in comparison, so I guess we'll see what the future holds. It seems we're getting like a Bond seal every 1 or 2 Tempest Trials, so it's bound to happen at the end of the day. At least, that's what it feels like. As for the big one, or what IS thinks is the big one, Speed Res Bond. Boy oh boy, that's an awkward seal. It's easily one of the worst combo we can have for Bond seals, period. Not even gonna joke about that. Speed and Res is such an awkward combo. Not many unit can really use the two of them together. At all. At all. Like, the only one that comes to mind are typically infantry unit able to use no follow-up. Or, I guess, units using, like, Legendary Tiki, who has a distant counter weapon and really good bulk. Also likes to have speed, so Speed Res Bond can actually be ideal for her. Because in that case, you can actually hit pretty high amount of speed. Special fighters shut down specials. You get extra points in Res, which is, honestly, if you're talking bulk-wise for Legendary Tiki, Res is one of her problem. Not by much, mind you, not by much, but it is worth mentioning. So it does help her in that regard, but at the end of the day, if you're going to merge her to +10, attack Res Bond will just be better. That said, if you're not and you're keeping her at low merge, this can be actually a pretty good seal to invest in. Other than this, like I said, infantry unit using no follow-up are some of the best user of it, because their speed becomes relevant, and they don't get shafted by bolt fighter users. As I said before, Shiro uses this seal really well because his speed is at the awkward bit where it's not too slow but not too quick. But for armored unit that is quick, so he's able to actually combo that pretty well. His weapon is also enemy phase, so it combos rather well with Bond skills, so this can be a pretty good option. Attack Dev Bond comboed with this for him is actually not that bad. It's rare that you want to have buffs in all stat with Bond skills, because frankly a lot of people are like, oh, it's good to have 5 across the board, but at the end of the day, how often does that help you? Not every unit uses all their stats. For example, Arden. Why the fuck would you want speed? And in most set, unless you're really building into tanking mages, why would you care about res? You get the idea. It's not really ideal. And a lot of units are like this. Like, for example, Drug doesn't care about res. Unless, of course, you're building him into res at the point of hurting your other stats by quite a fair margin. Fucking Legendary Tiki is one of the few units I can think of that could really abuse multiple Bond, but she kind of just wants Fortress Death Res instead. Like, there's a lot of situation like this where it just doesn't bring a lot to you. It can help for characters such as Lucina, Mass Lucina, because those characters have already a Spectrum Bond. But most people won't really be able to abuse all the stats they get. Ryoma, for example. Honestly, the number of characters I could say that just don't get to use all their stats, innumerable. At the end of the day, though, if I had, say, Attack Death Bond and Attack Res Bond on one unit, that type of combo is insane and can be used on literally 90% of the unit effectively. Speed is not bad, but typically if you're on the defensive, you want bulk and damage. You don't care too much about speed because you have skill to, well, fix that. Unless, like I said, you're using no follow-up. So, yeah, that's why it's a bit underwhelming. That's also why it's also, you know, fairly low on the tier list. It is what it is. And I realize I've put it in blue and not colorless. It is worse than Warding Stance, as you can see. It's in the blue column. I'm stupid. I hate this. But yeah, the point is, it's worse than Warding because Warding doesn't require you to set up. Speed Res Bond requires you to set up, and the payoff doesn't really, well, pay off. It's also the worst bond that we've got to this point, and honestly, it's the worst combo possible. And for some reason, 3 units have that skill, as if it's relevant. I don't understand. I don't understand at all. It's not great at all. It's definitely a seal that will be relevant for certain units, but it's gonna be so niche. It's a case-by-case basis. If you have a unit that can really abuse this, go for it. If you don't, yeah, it's just not worth it then. That's basically just what it is. So, as per usual, I hope you learned something new, or something at all. And I'll see you later in Discord or in the comments. So, have a nice one, everyone.